This is a game I recorded a while back. It is not actually a competitive game. It's not a tournament game at all, and it's between myself and Jesper Mogensen, who is most definitely the opposite of me. He's not a competitive player. He is, I wouldn't say a rivet counter, but he's a hobbyist who really cares about his tables and his armies. He's got wonderful tables, maybe the prettiest tables in all of Denmark. And this game actually features my newly finished Czechoslovakian army of the Sudetenland crisis. So I managed to get my Sudetenland Czechoslovakians done. If this could focus, it doesn't look good on camera, does it? But this is one of my spotters. These are all old toys. That's the whole concept of this army, is that I was only I was reusing toys that I inherited from an uncle, um, which turned out to be perfect 28mm miniatures from the post World War II era. They were produced in Denmark in the 1960s, sort of the equivalent of the Green Army Men of the US, I think. Some of them were even based on the same models, I guess. So I had these painted up as a Czechoslovakian army, um, because why wouldn't I? And I'm playing them as Romanians, and this was actually the first time they rolled out to an official game that wasn't just in the club, just me messing around with an unpainted army and stuff. So that is what we're going to do today. First, I'm going to show you the my list for this game. I don't actually have Jesper's list. I'm going to link it or write as much of it in the doobly-doo as I possibly can remember in the description for this video. But I haven't got a link for that list, so I'm sorry, you're going to have to imagine that or go to and look in the description. Right, this is my platoon. For my Czechoslovakians, I'm using the Romanian selector. It's the closest thing I can get, and then I'm limiting myself to more or less only having early war stuff, because Czechoslovakians, they were out of before World War II, right? They got annihilated by Germany in the Sudetenland crisis. So I got 14 order dice, 993 points. Can't remember if I bought a few extra submachine guns for those extra points. I had a second lieutenant. Oh, by the way, all of this army is regular. I had a second lieutenant with an extra man, regular. I had early war infantry. I had 2 units here with 8 men. The NCO had a submachine gun. I had 2 units with 7 men. NCO had submachine gun. So a little bit of difference in the size, and that was it came down to points basically. But I wanted to have all the infantry that I could take for this army. Then I have a combat pioneer section with a flamethrower, 8 men again, all rifles. I had a medium mortar with spotter, regular. I had a sniper team, regular. I had a heavy howitzer, regular. I had the free medium howitzer because Romanians get a free artillery piece, so I took that. So I had 2 howitzers, which was good. I had 2 horse-drawn limbers for those. They were easy order dice to pick up. And then I had a Panzer 35T. Now, with Romanians, you can take German allies, an Axis ally, and of course that makes no sense for my Czechoslovakians. So what I did was I went to the German reinforced platoon and got myself a second 35T, because I wanted to stay with the theme of running my Czechoslovakian. So I got 2 of these, which was immediately, it was a bit cheesy, right? Because I got 2 tanks and I got 2 howitzers. Um, but hey, that's what you do when you're playing minor nations. Romanian is actually one of the minor nations that they're pretty good for what they can do here. So, right, this is the table setup. We had this house, which we were playing each rooftop. So this was a building, this was a building, and that was a building. Then we had a small shed down here behind that. We had a forest here, forest there, and Jespers was standing over on our side. He picked this side. We had a forest here and a forest there. We had two forests here and a small forest here. Then we had a road going through, which was blocked by a tractor here in the middle. And we had this railway, which we rolled, was not rough ground, it was just open ground. You could run across it, but it did break up the road a little bit. And we had the small office building here for the railway. We had an enclosure here with soft cover, and that is it. Right, while you're looking at the table, I'll just talk to you about Jespers' army. He had a Recce Chaffe, he had a unit of engineers in a Dodge, he had 4 infantry units with loads of BARs. I think most of them had 3 BARs, some of them may have had 2. He had a sniper and a bazooka, he had a jeep for his bazooka, then he had a horse tow and a howitzer with a spotter, he had a lieutenant, a medium mortar with a spotter, and then a machine gun jeep, 14 order dice. So well-matched armies. We are playing double envelopment. Jesper picks this side over here. Let's go. Yeah, he picks this side, which I was not unhappy about, but I would have preferred this side as well. It had more lines of sight for the artillery. Right, so we have to declare reserves now, and then deploy our units via dice in bag. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead, so Jesper is just removing his army from the table. I put my tanks and my lieutenant and my horse-drawn limbers in reserve. I wanted those out because I wanted to try and counter Jesper's Chaffe tank, which was one-on-one better than my tank. So I felt like I needed to go up against his 2-to-1. Can't remember what Jesper put in to the reserves. His bazooka. He had his bazooka and the jeep in reserves, and he also had his engineers in their Dodge in reserves. This is really a well-placed piece of terrain for a table. Many tournaments you'll see less terrain than this, but this was really well set up. It was both looked gorgeous, and it was also, it had nice angles. It had some areas that were open, some that was like where you could hide. It was really good. Jespers tables are famous for this. They're always beautiful. I did want to set up within a camera overview here so that we don't get Jespers back too much, but unfortunately that was not possible. Um, it's a home game, right? It's just a matter of what you can set up to do. We could not find an angle for the camera. We roll off to see who forward deploys, and Jesper wins it. Right, Jesper is still thinking about where to put down his spotter for his medium mortar here. It's worth sometimes thinking about the angles that you can get. Where do you want it to actually be able to see? And I often set up so that I get like two angles, one from the mortar itself and one from the spotter. No, it wasn't for the medium mortar, it was for the howitzer. And he sets up in the central house here, in the top floor. I set up my spotter for my mortar over here. Jesper sets his mortar, observer, spotter. Yep, he sets up in the forest over here, where he has a long line of sight across the board and down here as well. I set up my light howitzer spotter over there. That's my medium howitzer down. Right, Jesper's turn. Now he does something very, very aggressive and very, very dangerous. This is not something I would recommend for most people. He sets his sniper down on the center line in that house. Now, this is extremely dangerous because everything that I have will be able to see that sniper. He'll, of course, be able to see a lot of my back lines as well. So that means that I'm going to have to deal with him early on. And that's the first thing I think about. Right. I set down the spotter for my heavy howitzer in the forest over there as well. At this point, I already know that I want as much of a line down here behind this house as possible. So that is why the two spotters are going over to this forest, because I can see across here. That will give me a good line of sight. Then I'm thinking that I may be able to deploy the howitzer somewhere in the center where they can sort of cover the rest. Right, now the dice go in the bag. We're ready for deployment. As we're playing the game here, you'll see me pacing back and forth quite a lot. This is not necessarily deliberate, but I do this, and it sort of helps sometimes to approach the table from different angles. You'll see the options, see the possibilities, and start to get a feeling of the table. Right, I start by getting the order dice, and I set up a unit of infantry. What I want to do here is I want to make sure that I control this piece of terrain, because I think this will be key. Preferably, I want to control both this forest and this house, so have my infantry on those places first. Um, that's not what necessarily what is going to happen here, but I think that board control, controlling these two areas and being able to defend those two areas might be key to winning this battle. That's the idea to start with here. I don't plan to actually push up at this point. We are playing double envelopment, but I'm not planning to push against Jespers' forces. I think he has a better skirmish army than I do. that push would not go well for me, I think. So for me, I absolutely want to stay in my own back lines and play this as if it was a kill points mission, which it is. He can try to come to me. I will punish him for that. That was the initial idea here. Right. Jesper sets down his howitzer, which I was a little bit surprised about. He sets down very early, which sort of he tries to force me into to deploying away from his howitzer, which of course I'll do, but that also means that I can start thinking about how I want to destroy that howitzer, and I already am doing that. As soon as I see him putting it down as the first unit, I was like, wait a minute. I've got my mortar spotter here. I know what that mortar is going to do now. It's going to try and zero in onto your howitzer. Um, so that plan was already forming in my head during deployment here. I think this was a mistake. I think he should have held back the howitzer for a longer time. Um, maybe it's the right place to place it, maybe, but that means that I can set up my mortar, and I set it up behind the forest where it can't see a thing, but I am able to use the spotter. I just want to be in range, and that I am. So as soon as I saw that howitzer going down, I knew the mortar could be next. Right. Then we have a unit of infantry. This unit of infantry is going to try to see if they can grab that second piece of terrain that I was talking about. This is all ball control. This is me trying to control this piece of terrain with one unit of infantry and a second unit of infantry towards the houses of this farm. This large manor house sort of is. Yeah, we're just checking the table length here. You're not actually allowed to pre-measure, but Jesper said that his table might not be wide enough, and it was. I think it lacked half an inch. It was perfect. At this point, I just realized that I've forgotten to deploy my sniper. So since I've forgotten to deploy him, he goes into the reserves, which sucked. I really wanted that sniper down, but yeah, well, he ends up not actually having that much of an effect on the game because I just didn't get him in um, until the late game, and he wasn't like very successful at that point. I get another order dice. At this point, I set up my medium howitzer. I set it up at a sort of a weird angle here, if you can see that. I set it up behind the forest down here. What I wanted to do here was I wanted to have a lockdown of this opening here, this gap, and towards this gap over here. And I do get that behind there, and that protects me from his heavy howitzer. So it's sort of weird that I don't have a direct line towards my enemy, but I'm trying to lock down possible movement lanes here. That's why I did this, and I'll still be able to fire via my my observer, who's over in this forest here, my spotter. This is a home game, so we do take quite a lot of breaks. It's not very well paced, um, but we did keep it in less than 3 hours. Right, Jesper gets the next order dice here. Jesper sets down his medium mortar. Again, I was a little bit surprised. I don't think he needed to do this early in the game. What he wants is to have visual contact with this unit of infantry, and he does from this forest here. But it's very early to set down your infantry, your artillery pieces. Now Jesper gets another order dice, and he sets up some infantry over on his left flank. I guess he felt like there was a better opportunity of pushing forward on that flank, which I agree with. I was at that point not investing heavily into that flank. So you see he sets up his infantry here. They can move either this way or that way. Either of them could give him a run towards my deployment zone. At this point, I get another order dice, and I am forced to deploy my pioneers. I did not really want to do that. It's just a little too early for me. I wanted to keep them back as long as possible, but I knew that they wanted to go towards the house. Yes, there is a sniper there, but I was hoping to get the first order dice and then immediately run up towards him so he couldn't actually use his sniper rifle anymore. As is, I am just outside of the 12 inches, and that means that he can shoot me with his sniper rifle if he gets the first order dice. We're playing the game in Jesper's living room with his wife and kids milling around the house around us. Right, Jesper deploys his infantry. I cannot remember if his infantry units were 7 or 6 or 8-man units. They were somewhere around that point. Looks like a 7-man unit, but I'm not sure. All those BARs, they were really threatening at this point because he has the range, right? He has the range advantage on me, and he is also a better skirmisher with the American move and fire. So remember, at this point, the Chaffe is not deployed. Jesper gets another order dice and put his lieutenant down in the center to support the mortar and infantry there. He is also aiming to control the center of the board. I think he's aiming more at the tractor than the house, but he is aiming to control the center here. Jesper gets another order dice. He sets down the last of his infantry units, I think that was, right on the extreme flank. So that's 2 American skirmisher units. Nope, not on the extreme flank, behind the house. He is overloading his left flank at this point, right? Trying to set up so that his infantry is mostly over there. It's a better skirmish area where the right flank is more maybe open. If he can drive the Chaffe through this area here or along this edge, that will be more open, and he'll have better chances there. But for infantry, not so much. One of my dice. I have to set up my heavy howitzer at this point. And the problem for me here is that there are no really good places to set the heavy howitzer. I can't actually set it up somewhere where I'm safe. So what I do here is I create a crossfire area. I set up the howitzer here facing towards the house and towards this edge because I have an actual line of sight all the way across here. Um, which means that I can cut him off at the edge. I can go in ambush and have direct line of fire here. And I can also sit and wait behind the forest. If he does end up controlling the house, I can sit and wait and have this heavy house on ambush. One further thing I can do here is I can start shooting at his sniper, dealing with that. It's a little bit overkill to shoot a sniper with a heavy howitzer, but well, I might bring down the house on him. Yeah. And his Chaffee goes here at the edge where we expected it to. This means that I'm going to have to counter that Chaffee at some point. But I want to wait for as long as possible with revealing my T-35s because I want them to stay back as much as possible. I want them to stay back so that I know where his engineers and his bazooka is going to go, because that is the real threat against my T-35s. I start out with shooting the mortar. Might as well get that off early. I'm shooting at the howitzer, of course, via the spotter. And I have range. And I roll a 6. That was really lucky. If I hadn't done that, I would have gotten it in a few turns, but it still really sucked for Jesper that I got that 6. And of course, everything has to be within 2 inches of the breach, and it's a medium howitzer, so 2 inches. So everything is hit, all his crewmen, and they all die. And the howitzer's gone. That was an early victory for me. That's 1 point straight out of Jesper's list, and a howitzer, and that's always a key piece, isn't it? So that was really good, really early on. Jesper gets an order dice. Jesper thinks about his sniper, and he shoots at my pioneers absolutely correctly here. I think I might have miscalculated this one, and I should possibly have started out by running my engineers towards that house. That was a slight mistake on my part, I think. Yeah, yeah. I got tempted by that heavy howitzer. He shoots, and he misses. That was really good for me. Right, my turn. And I was like, well, okay, maybe it's not that urgent running towards that house now. So the other infantry unit is more in danger, so I start by running those up. This may end up being a mistake, and you'll see in a moment. I'm trying again, trying to control the center of the board here without being hit by too much incoming HE. Jesper's turn. What would you do here if you were Jesper? Jesper moves up his infantry in the center. They might as well try to start pushing against the house, trying to contest that center of the board here. And again, his infantry is better than mine, so although everyone is regular, that move and fire is just really, really good. Yep. He sets up there and he shoots at the pioneers, which was clever, because he's moved. It's not, and he ignores that. So, and I'm within range of the BARs, so it's just soft cover, and I end up going down, which was definitely a mistake at this point. So Jesper needs 6s. Nope, sorry, 7s. And he gets it. So I get pinned, and he kills one. So he takes a he takes off a rifleman here. That was a 7, and he needed to follow that with a 7 to kill, right? 2 6s in a row in order for it to be exceptional damage. It wasn't, but he did get the first 6, so we were just like, what was that roll you just made? Checking. So now my pioneers are down and they're pinned, and that was not what I wanted them to be. I wanted them to be up against the house. It was just such an awful lot of shots. So you see here how I should have moved those engineers as the first thing, the pioneers. They should have moved, instead of me firing off that mortar, I should have moved the pioneers first. I didn't. Mistake. Now I risk them being pinned down for a long time and just not being effective. At this point, Jesper tries to bring on his jeep, which he forgets that he can't do. It is turn 1, so of course it goes down instead, which is perfectly fine. And I also start bringing down my reserves, just going down with everything that's outside the board. The reason why I didn't do this from the start was that there was something that was more important, right? I wanted to try and grab that center. I wanted to try and hurt that howitzer, and that seemed more important to me. I see now that at least the howitzer was a mistake, but the pioneers should have run up early. Right now, we're just wasting dice, going down, going down, going down, all the reserves. Each of us trying to get the other to blink first and do something that might be a mistake. I get an order dice, and for me at this point, I have 2 possible targets. I have my heavy howitzer. No, no, it's the medium howitzer. Yep. I have a spotter. I can start maybe hurting some of it, some of his. I have 2. For me, I have the 2 infantry units. That's just what I'm talking to Jesper about here. These 2 infantry units are both tempting targets. This one has moved, which makes it a little bit more tempting, and then the mortar. I shoot at the Marines, the Marines that are already moved, and this is to maybe see if I can get them to not be a threat to my control of the center. Over time, the mortar is more dangerous, but the Marines, if I could take them away and push them away from the center, that would be good. I'm shooting indirectly here. It's cooked. Nope, I miss. Me again here. The infantry behind the forest, I just set them on ambush. They're not going to shoot anything, but you know, I just want to waste my dice right now because they're not going to push up. They shouldn't. Not against Americans. No. That then my heavy howitzer. I just realized at this point that I've set it up wrongly. I've set it up in the center of the table, and a heavy howitzer, in order to shoot indirectly, needs quite a lot of range, which means that most of the center of the board is actually not in the range for indirect fire. I should have set these howitzers up the other way around, at least the other way around, or maybe one of the howitzers down here and then a spotter in the center. Anyway, where I've set up this howitzer, that is a mistake. And this maybe shows my inexperience with playing artillery. I'm not a comfortable artillery player. It doesn't really play to my strengths. Building this Czechoslovakian army is out of my comfort zone. It's me experimenting with other stuff. I make mistakes in this game. I do. Um, so I waste that shot because I'd already called it. Now Jesper has 5 order dice in a row here at the end of the turn. And he starts out by pushing his infantry into the forest. I think this may have been a mistake. Well, it ends up being a little bit of a mistake because now he can only move 6. He could have had a run around the forest, but that, of course, would have exposed him if I decided to bring on one of my tanks and started machine gunning him. And he takes some shots at one of the spotters. He is not going to do anything to that. Yeah, he needs 7s. He get 3 6s. And he doesn't get it. Right. Then that was the first of 5. The mortar. He shoots at the pioneers. He misses. Oh, he doesn't shoot at the pioneers. He shoots at the infantry in the courtyard. Yep. At this point, we had one of those, and you know those. Everyone who plays this game knows those. The dice don't match up to the units. That's yeah. So we had to do a recalculation of all the units and make sure that he had the right amount of dice in the bag. And yeah, Jesper had an extra dice in the bag. In the end, it turned out to be a simple mistake. He moves his lieutenant up to the house. Again, support for those infantrymen pushing towards the courtyard. And then he pushes his second unit towards my forest, across the railroad tracks there. For me, that was tempting, because that started to make me think about maybe pushing one of my tanks up the railroad track. That would have been good, but the T-35s, T-38s are not that great anti-infantry, but they do have two machine guns. They have a coaxial and a hull-mounted machine gun, so you can start hurting. But he had that Chaffe, and that Chaffe was for me a bigger threat. The infantry that's pushed up starts shooting again, and they shoot at my infantry in the courtyard. And he kills one. Nope, not at the infantry in the courtyard. He shoots at the pioneers and kills one. So the pioneers are now double pinned. See, the mistake gets worse and worse right now. That was turn 1.